Here are my opinions on every single one of the new Mega Evolutions in Pokemon Legends ZA. These are just going to be the ones from the base game. I may cover the future DLC ones when that comes out in a later video, but these particular designs have had a lot of discussion surrounding them, and I'm excited to share my own thoughts about them. And you guys are going to have to do the same in the comments as well, so be sure to let me know how you feel with a comment below. And with that said, let's just go ahead and get right into it with Mega Meganium. I have seen some people clowning on this design, but honestly, I actually like it. I think it's kind of what Meganium needed, because I personally view Meganium as kind of a plain Pokemon in terms of a final starter evolution, so I feel like this is what it kind of needed as a Pokemon. I personally would give it a B+ rank, and I think it is probably my favorite of all of the starter Megas for the Legends ZA starters. Mega Emboar is up next, and it is okay. I'm typically not a fan of when Pokemon have objects. In this case, I'll give it a pass because its staff is actually made out of fire, which I think is perfectly fine. But overall, the design is kind of just indifferent to me. I wouldn't say it's terrible. I'm not really a fan of it either, so I think it's like a C tier. Mega Feraligatr is arguably the most controversial with its toilet seat head, but personally I don't think it is as bad as everyone is making it out to be. I do understand where people are coming from, but I do like the idea of giving it a second huge head, or more specifically a jaw, and I really like how its arms come together with that fin to create that second big head and mouth that it has. Overall, I think I would probably say it's like a B- for me. It's kind of floating in between B and C. Like I said, I don't think it's as bad as everyone has said, but I can understand where people are coming from for those who might not like it as much. Mega Barbaracle is interesting because I do really like the direction it's going, and it looks the way you would expect a Mega Barbaracle to look. It looks really intense, and it also has a type change. It becomes part fighting type, which is really cool, but there's just something about it that seems kind of weird to me, and it just kind of seems, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but there is something off-putting about this design, in my personal opinion, that holds it back, so I think I would give it probably a C tier. Mega Starmie is up next, who is probably one of the most infamous new Megas in this entire game, and I am probably in the majority opinion on this one, or at least I think it's the majority opinion, in saying that this one is a D tier or maybe even an F tier. However, there is a caveat with this, because while I have no idea whatsoever if this was actually the intent with this design, I do think it could be possible that Mega Starmie is supposed to be an astronaut, or at least a spaceman in general. The reason I say this is because we know that Starmie is a Pokemon from outer space. It also gets long legs, which goes with Lita having this Pokemon as her ace, and Lita's a dancer, so it works that way. But it also, in gaining long legs, becomes more humanoid, which is something that the Pokédex also mentions about this Mega. Along with that, the back half of its body being much shorter by comparison resembles to me the big packs that the spacesuits of astronauts have on their backs. And then the big red jewel in the middle of this Pokemon's face now resembles to me, with this new more human-like appearance, the big glass visors and helmets of astronauts and their spacesuits as well. So I think there actually is a pretty good resemblance to an astronaut here, or again, like I said, just a general spaceman. And while I don't know if that was the case or the intention that they were going for, if that is actually what it's supposed to be, I think that is ingeniously incorporated into Starmie's design, despite just being such a simple change of just giving it longer legs. And that would probably bump it up to like a C tier for me, just on the execution alone. So if that was the case, that bumps it up significantly, but as of right now, that's just my own personal speculation. Mega Pyroar is up next, and Mega Pyroar is solid. There is a slight element of goofiness and silliness to the design with the over-the-top mane that it gets upon Mega Evolving, but I do also think there is an element of cool here as well. I think it is, once again, solid overall, so I think I would give it a B tier. Mega Clefable is also going to be a B tier for me as well. I really like that it gains the flying type and makes use of its wings, which these Pokemon have always had, but have never really done anything with, so it's cool to see it realized here. It basically becomes a butterfly, which makes a lot of sense with it also being a fairy type. The one thing that I am kind of wondering about is what the head is supposed to be, or what it is supposed to resemble. I think that looks slightly odd, but overall I think this is a solid Mega, so it's a B tier. Mega Scolipede is awesome. I am pretty indifferent on Scolipede as a Pokemon. I've never really been a fan of it, but even with that said, I think this Mega is really good. It is kind of funny because it becomes even more horse-like in this Mega, and it's always been said that Scolipede kind of resembled a horse to begin with, so for it to become even more horse-like in my opinion, despite being this bug, is kind of funny in my opinion, but overall it looks great. I would give this one an A tier. Mega Victreebel is obviously one of the first new Megas that we saw, and this one I'm kind of mixed on. It's not really my favorite by any means, but I do appreciate what they were going for and what they, I guess you could say, tried to accomplish. Regardless of whether you think it landed well, I do appreciate that. It's floating between B and C for me, so I think I would say probably like C+ or B-. I, once again, don't think it's terrible, but it's not necessarily my favorite. Mega Excadrill is also a similar case to me. I think I would say it's C+, B- range, because it, like Mega Victreebel, I really do kind of respect what they were trying to go for here. To me, it's mostly a matter of execution. I think the different parts of this big drill that it makes up when its arms and its head come together, I think that's a really cool concept, and I do like how it actually becomes a drill in its Mega versus just the claws that it has in the base form. But again, I think as far as the execution goes, it's not as good as it could have been, or what I would have liked to have seen personally. So yeah, it's like C+, B- for me. Hey, just wanted to say thank you for watching the video so far, and if you are enjoying it, consider checking out my merch store. It is a great way to directly support the channel so more videos like this can keep happening, and you can pick up some really cool high quality stuff like plushies and trading cards. The link to check all of that out is in the description below. Like I said, it helps out a ton, and it is super duper appreciated. Give it a look. Thank you so much as always for your guys' support, and now let's get back to the Megas. Mega Eelektross is another really cool one, and I would give it an A tier because I just think it pulls off transitioning from Eelektross into a Mega really well. And I guess you could just say it has what I'm looking for in a Mega evolution. Personally, I think Eelektross is a really underrated Pokemon. I think it's really good, but just doesn't get talked about as much as it should, and I don't think it really gets the praise it deserves. And I think this just kind of builds off of that. I think it just expands on the coolness of Eelektross's design, and once again, gives it a Mega that I think does its initial design justice. So again, I would say A tier. Now we come to Mega Dragonite, and it was obviously the first of all of the new Megas that we saw for this game, and the public reaction for this one was obviously really strong. There were a lot of people really leaning against it, and I think they are still leaning against it, and that did include myself, at least initially. I am really starting to warm up to this design, and I kind of was already within the last few weeks before the game's launch. I initially kind of had it at a C tier ranking, maybe trending towards D tier, like C- or somewhere in that range, but in recent weeks as we've started to see more of this Pokemon, and particularly get like different art of it and see it in the anime and things like that, the design just started to sit better with me, I guess you could say. So it kind of started to move its way up into a B tier range. I would say maybe like B minus or just like a flat B. But now that the game's out, maybe it's just because I've had time to let this design digest, I'm liking it even more. So I feel like I would put it now in kind of a B plus territory, and a big reason for this is because of this Mega's shiny. Shiny Mega Dragonite gains the blue from Dragonair, which is kind of the motif of this Mega, of it getting Dragonair-like features, and this is not only something that people have wanted to see forever in terms of Dragonite having that blue Dragonair color, but it also looks unbelievably good. It's crazy how a simple color change completely just does so much for the design and totally changes the perception on it. Because to me, the shiny is an S tier easily. And that's not something that I usually do when looking at designs. I don't usually take the shiny into consideration as a factor of how good the Pokemon is. That's usually a separate thing for me, but in this case, it's just so good because it's just easily an S tier that it does, for me, help the design overall. So like I said, B plus on the general one, but again, the shiny is easy S tier. Mega Malamar is up next, and this one I really liked when it was first revealed, but I have simmered on it a little bit. I mostly don't really like the tentacle brain that it's got going on. I do really respect that as like a design element, but as far as its appearance goes, it's not really my favorite. However, I do love how this design has so many different layers to it, in terms of it being a squid, in terms of it being like a supervillain. It's also like a central nervous system, which goes along with Malamar, like brainwashing people. And then obviously you have the tentacle brain, as I said. So there's a lot going on here, and for the most part, I think it's pulled off pretty well. So I would say this one is like B to B plus. I think for the most part, it does a pretty good job of being a cool Mega. And for the most part, other than that brain, I think it's pretty cool. Mega Dragalge is also about the same. I would say B to B plus. I think it does a pretty good job of being a good Dragalge Mega Evolution. I am interested to know why they created that false face above Dragalge's actual head. I'd be interested to know what the like design origins are on that, because that to me feels somewhat unnecessary. But overall, I do think this Mega is pretty cool. So like I said, around B plus. Mega Froslass is okay. I do like what they were going for with the whole Yuki-Onna vibe and just kind of going even harder in on that, but the way they accomplished that by making this Pokemon a lot taller, that execution once again doesn't sit as well with me as I think it could have, because it kind of just feels like they stretched Froslass out and now it has even more accurate human proportions, which isn't inherently a bad thing. It's just on this particular design, it's not as optimal as I would prefer, I guess you could say, so it's probably a C tier. Mega Hawlucha I did not really like when it was first revealed. I do think it looks better in-game than it did in that initial reveal trailer, which does help it, but it's also not really my favorite. I think I would probably give it a B minus. I think the way they incorporated the whole wrestler mask is okay, but it does come dangerously close to putting clothes on a Pokemon, which is something I don't like. The black and gold as a whole is cool. I think, once again, with it basically just being markings and colors on the Pokemon's body itself, I think that's fine, but it does come pretty close to, again, giving Pokemon clothes, which I'm personally not a fan of, so for it kind of teetering that line, I think B minus is where I would put it. And speaking of Pokemon with clothes, Mega Scrafty basically does the same thing, but I think it actually does a better job of that than Mega Hawlucha does, because basically what's going on with Mega Scrafty is it's wearing its shedded skin as clothes, which it's doing in its base form as well, but it just becomes more pronounced here with the skin now turning white, which obviously is what happens with the shedded skin of reptiles, and overall I think it's incorporated pretty good. I always do appreciate and like most of the time when Megas get a cool color change like this, and as far as the motif of the shedded skin being clothes, I think it is pulled off decently well enough. So I think this one I would say is probably B, maybe B-, but overall pretty solid. Mega Chandelure is an A tier. I think this one is really, really good and one of the best of the new ones in this game. I think it pulls off the whole Chandelure vibe and like expanding on that as a Mega really, really well, and it does it in a way to where it looks like a Mega Evolution. Again, this is like the kind of Mega that I am personally looking for with Mega Evolutions, and it doesn't get too complicated, it doesn't get too crazy, it doesn't look too silly as an inanimate object Pokemon, which could have been a danger for this design. It just pulls off what it's trying to do really well and is what I am personally looking for once again with Mega Evolution. So overall, great Mega, one of the best of this game, A tier. Mega Falinks is also an A tier, and that might surprise some because this is obviously a more silly Mega, but the reason why I like this one so much is because this is exactly what a Mega Falinks would be. Like, in terms of what Falinks is as a Pokemon, and if you just envisioned what Mega Falinks would be without this design existing, like, this is exactly what you would picture. So I essentially think they did exactly what they needed to do for a Mega Falinks design. I think it just hits the nail right on the head, and it also has a lot of personality. I really like, in particular, the middle member of the whole crew kind of struggling to hold up the other three that are above it. I think that just adds a lot of charm to the design. So overall, I think this one is just pulled off really well, and it's an A tier. Mega Skarmory is a bit of a disappointment for me, because Skarmory is obviously such a cool Pokemon, and the thought of it getting a Mega is just mind-blowingly awesome, so there was tons and tons of potential here, and while I think what we got is okay, it isn't as good as I would have hoped for. The biggest thing for me that's kind of off-putting is the gold color that it gets. I did just say with Scrafty that I do really like when Megas get drastic color changes, but it does depend on the new drastic color that they get. And in this case, I just think that the gold, it's just not really working for me. I feel like I would have preferred another color on its body, and I honestly don't know what that color would have been, but I think I would have preferred something else to the gold color. So that is probably the biggest gripe that I have with the design, but with that said, I do think it is still solid. I think I would probably give it a B tier. Mega Drampa is S tier, and not only that, it is probably the best new Mega out of all of them that are in this game. It is just so unbelievably good. They absolutely cooked with this design, and that is coming from someone who doesn't really care all that much about Drampa in general. I would say base Drampa is probably like a C tier Pokemon for me. I've never really had much interest in it. I've never really cared for it. This, though, legitimately makes me want to catch a Drampa and put it on my team just so I can use this Mega. And that is when you know you have got an absolute just fire design. So again, easy S tier and probably the best of the new Megas in this entire game. Mega Chesnaught is also probably going to be an S tier for me. I've always loved the Chespin line. I've been in the minority on that forever, and I think Mega Chesnaught just makes the base Chesnaught design even cooler, and I think it polishes it up even more and just makes it even more of a cleaner design. So this one, I think I would also have to say is an S tier, because I just for as hotly anticipated as this Mega was, as the Mega evolution of a starter Pokemon, along with the rest of the Kalos starters, I just think it hit the landing so well, and I think it just looks cool, just straight up. So overall, this one is an S tier. And Mega Delphox is also an S tier. It's actually in hot contention for the best Mega of the game, I would say, along with Mega Drampa. I think Mega Drampa edges it out just barely, but this one isn't just such a good Mega. It also has a similar thing with Drampa in terms of just providing a massive upgrade to the Pokemon in general, because I'm not a Delphox fan, but I want to use Mega Delphox. I would put Mega Delphox on my team in a heartbeat. So again, just such an improvement over the base design in my opinion, and that just makes for an easy S tier. Mega Greninja is an A tier for me, which is a bit sad because it does prevent the Kalos starter Megas from going 3 for 3 with the S tiers, which would have been awesome, but even though this design is pretty good, the thing that prevents it from that S rank for me is the fact that it's upside down. It just makes the design harder to appreciate when the orientation is literally flipped upside down. And it always being upside down is also just not the greatest in my opinion. I think if you flip the design right side up, then I think you have an S tier design, and I do understand why it's upside down because it's the whole ninja thing, but I think it being right side up would have worked too, not only because it just looks really, really cool, but the shuriken that it is hanging from could have also functioned as a giant lily pad because it's a frog, so it would have also worked in that aspect too, and that to me would have made it S tier, but as it stands being upside down, it's just an A tier. Mega Zygarde is weird, and I think that's probably the best word that I could use to describe this Mega, because while I think in general it does look pretty cool, I just want to know what's going on with the giant cannon. Like, a giant cannon as a feature is fine, I have no problem with that, and once again, cool in general. It just gives the design a kind of strange look that I think holds it back, but there's obviously something going on there. I mean, it's a legendary, so it's obviously powerful, but in terms of origins, there's obviously a reason why they gave it this cannon and why they did it in this way. So that is something I personally would like to know more about. I think that could kind of make or break the design, but in terms of just a surface level perspective, just taking the design for what it is straight up, I would probably give it like a B ranking. I think it's fine, but it's also kind of strange too. And for that strangeness, it might even be B-, but overall, just somewhere in the B range. And then, last but not least, for the base game Megas, we have Mega Floette. There's a lot to like about this Mega, the fact that it overall looks pretty solid, pretty cool in general. I love the fact that they went ahead and gave Eternal Flower Floette a Mega Evolution. It was great in terms of just the story, and the fact that they gave a Mega Evolution to a Pokemon who otherwise wouldn't be able to have one as a pre-evolved Pokemon. I think that is also really cool too. So yeah, just a lot of really cool stuff going for this in terms of the background. In terms of the design, like I said, it's decently cool. I personally would have liked to have seen Floette's actual body change a little bit as well, because it's literally just the flower that changes, and then it becomes kind of wrapped around Floette's body, but Floette itself doesn't actually change, and that is something that I personally would have liked to have seen, but otherwise it is pretty cool. The flower looks pretty epic, so as a whole, with all of that in consideration, I would probably give this one a B tier. And that is all of the new Mega Evolutions in the base game, and like I said, we are now awaiting the DLC, which is already advertising new Megas, and we're sure to get more as well. So I may cover those in a future video as well, and if you would like to see that, let me know in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts about all of these Megas too. I would really like to hear it, and also, it goes without saying, but these are just my opinions. If you feel differently, that's totally cool. That's the beauty of Pokemon. Thank you guys so much as always for watching as well. I really appreciate it. I'll be back with another video very, very soon. And until then, as always, I will smell you guys later.